Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for our Transforming Learning with Google, Gsuite, and Chromebooks. My name is Chris Hart, and I am delighted to be here to host this evening. So what I'm going to do, if that's okay with you guys, I'm going to just share my screen again and start us off with our presentation. So I'll just jump into screen share. It'll get a little bit Doctor Who and a bit weird, but it'll be fine in a tick. Okay, so as I say, I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you for joining us for the second in our 2017 series of Google for Education webinars. And tonight is really exciting. I will do a little bit more introductions in a second, but we do have two guest speakers, Ben Thomas from Xavier College in Albury and Richard Johnson from Google. So the agenda for tonight is there's going to be some introductions and a few updates. Then we're going to talk about Chromebooks and Chrome Management Console in particular. And then Ben is going to talk to us about how they've transformed learning at Xavier High School using Chromebooks, Gsuite, and the Chrome Management Console. So I think it's really important. I just want to make this point very strongly that tonight is a really exciting mix of technology. Like we are going to look, and Rich is going to take us through some of the technical aspects of how Chromebooks work beautifully with Gsuite, and also pedagogy, how the actual technology improves learning outcomes for our kids, our main bread and butter day job. And so what I want you to think about today is if you're a teacher, I think more than ever now, it's so important that as teachers, we try and understand the technology that we have access to. And that as an IT manager, because I know we have a big crowd of IT managers, IT crowd as it were, with us tonight, that understanding the pedagogy that teachers want to put in place and how technology can support them is really super important. So before we get into the introductions, I just want to do two quick updates for you. Two exciting things happened over the last couple of weeks since our last webinar. And one of them came out the other day, which I thought you might be interested in seeing, was using Google Keep. Now, if you don't use Google Keep, it's essentially a note-taking kind of app which you can have on your phone or on your Chromebook or indeed any mobile device. And it lets you take notes on the run. So you can take voice notes, you can take written notes, and you can even do drawings. But what Google have done, which is awesome, if I just jump into a doc and show you, is they have integrated Google Keep within Google Docs now. So if you've been away taking notes, you can now go to Tools, and you can click on the Keep Notepad, which will be in your Tools toolbar. Click on Keep Notepad, and that will open up on the sidebar here. And essentially what opens are all of the notes that you've taken on your Google Keep. So if, for example, I'd done a quick drawing of some kind of interesting thing that I liked in Google Keep, I can now drag and drop that into a Google Doc, and I can share that Google Doc, and we can actually have a discussion. Now, I'm excited about this, and I want to see how I use it, but one of the things which I am also really excited about is when I am actually working in a Google Doc, I can also now take a note. So that means I'm able to essentially read through documents which are shared with me and keep my own notes on the side here. So not just in the comment form, but actually in Google Keep form. So an awesome update for Gsuite. So I hope you use that, and please let us know how you get on with it. And then the next thing I want to show you, and this I'm very, very excited about, as a languages teacher, I've always got kids to create video and create videos of themselves. And one of the downsides has been, sometimes we have issues about putting things on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And in presentations in the past, you could only insert videos from YouTube. But now, if you go to Insert and Video, you'll actually be able to choose not just by YouTube search, but by Google Drive search. So this is a video I made of a binary numbers for a breakout game. So I can select that video and I can put it onto my slides. Now, if you have been given access, it works like any doc, it has the sharing options are important here. If you've been given access to that video, you will then be able to see it. So imagine kids creating videos using something like Screencastify, and then putting those videos into their drive, and then being able to insert those videos into a presentation slide. The really exciting thing is if I right-hand click on it, I actually now have video options. And if I go to video options, I can do some of that neat stuff like saying when it is going to start and when it's going to end. So if, for example, you were running videos at a presentation night for parents or something like that, you can actually trim the video and say when you want it to start, when you want it to end. You can have autoplay when presenting as well. And you can also, once you actually get it up and going, right-hand click on the video and you can loop that video. So if you have parents' evening, you can have kids' videos playing in the background. So just a couple of updates I thought you might be interested in. Hope that is of use to you. So I'm just going to jump back into the presentation and just reiterate that tonight is all about technology and pedagogy. So we're going to get the best of both worlds. And I am going to now introduce my fellow presenters tonight, Richard Johnson, who's a Google for Education deployment specialist up in Sydney, and Ben Thomas, who is Learning and Digital Pedagogy Coordinator at Xavier High School in Albury. So Richard and Ben are going to be, Richard's going to do the first section for us. I'll jump back in and then Ben is going to finish off. And if you have some questions, I can see already some of you are starting to do that in the chat. Please keep putting those questions in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it. And those questions that we can, we will ask the presenters as we go along. But also, actually, one thing I've just noticed in the chat, if you've got a blurry view of this video, by default, the quality of the video defaults down to 120p or something. So if you look at the cog on the bottom right of the video screen, you can click on that cog and you can improve the video quality up to 720p or something like that, so you can see it nice and clear. So without further ado, I'm actually going to jump off here. I'm then going to do my Doctor Who thing, and I'm going to stop my presentation, and I'm going to pass over to Richard from Google. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Chris. It's good to be here. Let me just share my screen and we'll get going. So thanks, Chris. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Richard Johnson and I'm the Chrome deployment specialist here in Sydney. I look after the deployments for Chrome in education. I've worked with a number of schools. I've worked with the ACT public schools as well as the New South Wales Department of Education. So we've got a packed agenda today. We've got a couple of things to go through. So first of all, we're going to go through what is Chrome device management. We're going to go through a couple of settings and policies, especially the key ones that will impact education and are really good for education. We'll talk a little bit about online testing readiness, as well as reporting and support. So a lot of you may have already been into the Chrome Management Console before. We also call it the Admin Console. And if you're a Google for Education user, you've been in here before. There's over 200 different policies for device management, and they're really useful ones. They can control OS updates, and you can remotely lock and secure Chromebooks. So let's move on and let's see how we can get to this console. There are three ways you can get there. You can go through the URL at the top of your browser bar, which is admin.google.com. You can go through your quick links if you're already signed in as an admin, or you can use your mobile app. The first two are probably the best way to get there. The mobile app is more for just viewing purposes. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the policies and the settings. So when you go into your device management, you'll find that there are 4 different types of settings. There are user settings. So these are the settings that follow the users regardless of which Chrome device you're on. There are device settings. These are the settings that will follow the device regardless of who's using it. We've also got things like network settings. Now these are network preloaded Wi-Fi's and Ethernet settings that you can push down to a Chromebook or an actual user. And the last one is device management. This is where you can see the list of devices that you've got and you can manage them by disabling or enabling them. So let me delve a little bit more into device management. So as I mentioned before, this is where you can see every single device that you've enrolled to your admin console. As you can see from the list here, we've got things like the serial number, asset ID, enrollment date, and who's enrolled them. So these are all pretty important things when it comes to managing Chrome devices. You'll also notice that in the top right-hand corner, we've got a little icon that says available licenses. This indicates how many licenses you have left in your domain. Other key things to look for are at the top of the bar, you'll see in a circle, more actions. This is where you can select a device and you can either deprovision it or disable it. So you'd only disable these if a student lost their device or they misplaced their device so that no one else can utilize it. You'll also see in the bottom left-hand corner a little search bar. That search enables you to look for any device that you need to apply a policy to. Okay, as I mentioned before, network settings are pretty important as well. This is so that when you push a Chromebook out to an individual student, the network is already preloaded. This means that the student doesn't have to touch any of the device settings for the Wi-Fi. It also enables that you can lock the device down to a certain Wi-Fi so that it can't access any other network protocols. So that means you can't access Ethernet or another Wi-Fi that gives them access out to the direct internet. So user settings are a very interesting one. User settings are as I said before, are settings that follow the user regardless of which device it's on. So when you think about user settings, think about custom wallpapers, avatars, those sort of things. These things will follow the student around regardless of which device they're on. You'll be able to push apps and extensions. You can send them to a customized Chrome web store. You also have the ability to enable or disable hardware. So let me give you an example of that. If I'm using my Chrome device and I'm logged into it, I can log off, jump on another device across the room, and it will be exactly the same experience. That's what user settings stand for. Now we come to device settings. So these settings are settings that follow the device regardless of who's using it. The main ones that you want to look for in here are forced re-enrollment. This one locks the device to your domain so that you can't have anyone else outside of your domain use it. This is great for BYOD. If a student wants to lose their device, the school can look after it, lock it, and disable it so that it becomes useless to outsiders. You can also specify who can log in, and you can do autocomplete domain. What that means is you can preload the domain name at the end, so the student is only putting in their username. This is great for schools that have very long usernames or very long domain names, and it saves a lot of time. One other big thing to call out is kiosk apps. So Chrome devices are built for kiosk applications. What this means is that when it comes to exam time, you have a great product that's easy to use and easy to deploy for exams. So let me touch a little bit more on exams. If you want to set up an online exam, there's 4 easy steps to get a Chromebook ready. First, you enroll the Chromebook, then you select the organizational unit, you add the application, for example, NAPLAN, which all you guys would know is coming in 2017 and beyond, and then you set it to auto launch. It's simple as that. Once you've finished with the exam, you can click the little None button down the bottom and you can return the Chromebook to its normal state. What we're saying here is that Chromebooks are multi-purpose. It means you can use them for everyday school use, but also they're exam ready for the future. The other thing I want to talk about is reporting. So with the Chrome Management Console, you get a really powerful reporting tool. There's 4 different reports that you can grab from here, and you can grab 7-day active reports. So what that means is that you can see which devices are active over a 7-day period. You can see which Chrome device release channels are available to users. So you can see if it's on stable channel or beta channel. You can see if they're running verified boot or not, which means are the devices secured? And you can see which version of Chrome it's running on. These are really important if you need to manage your fleet properly and see if you need to refresh your fleet in the future. Now, when it comes to support, Google are really good with their support. We have 24/7 support around the world, and it follows the sun, which means if you raise a case with us, we will support you in a different time zone. It doesn't matter where you are. Okay, there are 2 methods of support. We've got our phone support, so you can call our 1-800 number and you enter a PIN and an operator will pick up and help you out. The other one is email support case. So you can log an email case ticket with our support guys and they'll answer you straight away. Now, these features are only available if you have access to Chrome Management Console. So I just want to quickly recap. So what we've learned today is how to get to CDM and what is Chrome Management Console. Okay, there's different settings, and as I've mentioned before, there's user settings, device settings, network settings. We've also gone through online testing, and we've seen how support and reporting can help you as an administrator. If you guys want to know any more information, there's a number on the screen here, the 1-800 number, or if you're in New Zealand, the 0800 number. Okay, now I'm going to pass back to Chris.
Awesome, thank you very much, Rich. Can I just thank you for that. It's really interesting to see what you can do with that technical management of Chromebooks. I'm just going to hang on for a second. If anyone has any quick questions for Rich, please feel free to put them in the chat. Timothy puts, when are they all ready? But I'm not sure what that question means, Timothy. So if you can expand that a little bit more, that would be great. But just to clarify, Rich, when you're talking about rolling out a big block, 200, 300, or even more Chromebooks, how long would that take an admin person or a couple of people to actually do?
So if all the Chrome devices are in the one organizational unit, it's one setting to change them to a kiosk mode or to apply a setting. It takes around about 30 seconds, okay? And it comes in pretty quick.
Awesome, thanks for that, Rich. Okay, so what we might do is we'll keep some of these questions as they come in, and we will jump across to our next presenter, Ben. So Ben, if you want to get that camera on and put on your mic, then Ben is going to talk us through the transformative journey that he has been on and his school has been on for actually quite a while, and do that through, and do that presentation. I'm trying to read chat at the same time, Ben, really sorry, mate. And so he'll be able to talk to us about what it's like in his school at Xavier College in Albury. So Ben, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you to Rich as well, because a lot of what I'm here to talk about has been made far easier to explain with that previous explanation. So what I'm going to do, again, we're going to approach the twilight zone as I switch over to screen share to my presentation. And we'll fix that up. Okay, so my little chat here tonight is to share our story and hopefully a lot of the main points that schools would be looking for if they're considering the same move that we have done. So a quick agenda there. Why did we go Chromebooks? What were the features that mattered most to us as a school? How we aimed to do that transformation. It wasn't just a series of ad hoc, haphazard steps. What impact has that made? And then I would really like some questions. So as we go through this presentation, please don't hesitate to type your questions in the little chat window, and there will be some time at the end where Chris can pick out some questions for us to share and answer. So to start off with, why Chromebooks? Why the actual device itself? So we started, and when I first started here, the digital education revolution was in place, where they funded, I might just click there as well. Digital education revolution, funding laptops, Windows-based machines for years 9 to 12 students. And this funding stopped pretty much a year after I started here at school. But it was a decision made by the school that we didn't want to stop providing devices to students. We needed to find a way that we could continue moving forward with technology and education in a more sustainable and pedagogically effective way. So we looked at everything. We trialed a range of different devices, Windows-based netbooks. We even considered Apple iPads, maybe other tablets. And it really came down to our context and our background as to why we settled on Chromebooks originally. So our diocese, we are a Catholic school here, and we are a part of a larger system. And recently our diocese had made the move to Google, what was known as Google Apps for Education, now Gsuite. And we wanted to leverage that benefit. We wanted to leverage all the things that Google was offering us 5 years ago now. And that's when we came up with the idea of Chromebooks in education. It wasn't something that had been done a lot or well or even much before in Australia. And for a lot of our leadership members, it was a bit of a leap of faith because they were all used to Apple or PC machines, and there was this relatively unknown device on the market that we wanted to move to. But some of the reasons why we did make that move was, one, it was the cost of the machine. Not only was it significantly lower than any Windows-based netbook or even iPads, the actual low cost of it allowed us to extend our program to be not just providing a device for 9 to 12, but to go fully and completely one-to-one, also providing these devices to our Year 7 and 8 students. The reason we wanted to continue going with the Chromebooks and why they were also an option for us is that leap of faith was to do with the online capabilities and the nature in which a Chromebook runs. And a few were wondering how that would go, moving away from your operating system-based machine. But we'd really had a few initiatives going here, one with Google and another with an online learning management system. And we wanted to promote the continued use of that. So the Chromebook was really our way to do that. Now, just a few little stats for us as to how we knew that the Chromebooks were a successful machine. We ran them through a trial. We started with a 2-week program with one English class to see how it would go. We then extended that to be a larger and larger set of students. So staff were extremely happy because gone were the days of these 15-minute plus boot up times of netbooks. The Chromebook really supported the pedagogy in the classroom of, okay, we need to call upon a tool, and that tool needs to be readily available to us. Grab your Chromebook, open it up, start going wherever you need to. Whereas netbooks were at the start of the lesson, okay, everyone, open up, turn on your netbook, and then maybe in 20 minutes' time when we need to use it, it will be ready. Student success has been measured this year. We go with a 2-year rollover plan with Chromebooks, and our current Year 12 cohort for last year, were sitting in the middle of that. They'd only had their machine for 12 months, so we gave them the option to either purchase it out and pay the remaining balance that they needed to, or hand it back to the school. And we had approximately a third of our students, 50 out of our 140-ish Year 12 students, saw the Chromebook as a tool that they could continue using in further education, and so they bought it out. And finally, for us as a technical success, many of the issues can be solved in-house in a matter of minutes, simply flushing the machine and starting again. Because it's not an operating or a traditional operating system-based machine, a lot of the problems come with the software. You just start again. Nothing of the students is stored on the machine. It's all stored up in the cloud. So technical assistance is very, very quick and easy. Now, the Chrome Management Console. I won't spend too much time on this one. Richard done an amazing job there of explaining this. But really, to sum it all up, we never considered buying 900 Chromebooks without the Chrome Management Console. We didn't see it as a possibility of being able to manage that. So that, yeah, to sum it up, we never considered it. But some of the reasons why we went for it is because of deployment and provisioning of devices. When you initially purchase around approximately 900 Chromebooks, it seems like a very daunting task to get those ready to hand to students, to get them signed into our system, to get those device settings and user settings that Richard talked about in place. But it only takes 1 or 2 people a couple of days to get an entire fleet of Chromebooks ready for our school. In addition to that, Richard already talked about those user and device settings for us. Some of the key ones that we use is we've created a homepage for our students, so we set that as their default page. We're able to push out bookmarks and apps and extensions that we believe will be of great benefit to all of our students. Offered on these devices is amazing, much like the lockdown Chromebook and locking it to your domain, as Richard talked about. So they were huge. And one of the biggest ones was the future-proofing ourselves, is getting us ready for NAPLAN online. And in addition to that, we also do ASA PAT testing here. And the flexibility offered to us of the Chromebooks, every student already has one. They turn up to the exam room. We perform our PAT testing in a lockdown, secure environment so that the students are only able to access the test that they need, unable to open any other tabs to search for answers, unable to open a chat window to talk to some of their peers for answers. It is the best system you could ever do for those online exams and tests. Now, our plan to transform. What better way to talk about a plan than to start with a quote to add a bit of weight? Times were changing in education. Times are changing. And we needed to change with it, but we needed direction. And the way we found our direction was to source a third-party external enterprise to perform a site survey, interviews, and offer a range of recommendations, which formed our Digital Pedagogy Strategic Plan. Don't leave home without one. If you are starting this from the get-go and you are beginning on your technological journey of adopting technology in education, do it with a plan. So our plan was initially based around a 3-year model by this external company having employees come to our site here at Xavier. They talked to staff, to students, to a few parents. They sent out surveys. They did those live interviews, and they themselves were well researched. What they eventually did was come back with 7 overall objectives that we had identified as a community to achieve, backed up by the research and evidence. And those 7 overall objectives were broken down into 30 unique strategies that were achievable, measurable goals. We knew how successful we would be based on how many objectives and strategies we were hitting along the way. Now, in relation to providing Chromebooks to our students, 13 of the 30 strategies were either directly related to or at least were influenced by having a device for every student. And due to time, I might just go through a couple of those. But it's important to remember that this strategic plan was based on our context. It was based on what everyone wanted and what the needs were at the time. So one of the first ones, one of our objectives was to do with new learning spaces, and that came with its own statement. But one of the strategies was to investigate bring your own device models to provide one-to-one devices for Year 7 and 8 based on ongoing investigations into alternatives such as iPads, smartphones, and tablet devices. So straight up, there was an objective a strategy that we could meet just by deciding and having a look at our devices for Year 7 and 8. On top of that, in the new learning spaces objective, we had strategies around implementing cloud technologies, as well as Web 2.0 and online learning environments, such as Google Apps. We also needed to build on our use of social media to communicate with our parents in our community, but also with our students. And it would be unfair that if we did not provide a device to every student, then we could not reasonably expect them to access that communication. And a few more around that overall objectives of digital pedagogy, student-centered learning, as well as I mentioned before, the new learning spaces. Finally, though, one of the strategies that we looked to achieve was to support action research projects that provide evidence-based data on the efficacy of embedding technology to improve student outcomes. And what that means in plain English is we needed to measure our impact. If we were spending money, if we were investing time, both staff and students, in using technology in education, how did we know it was working? To start off, we need to understand that technology is the tool. I know you've heard it all before, and whenever you try and introduce the idea of bringing technology into education, there is always someone in the audience that needs to remind you that technology is just a tool, stop making it the focus. And we need to acknowledge that fact. We don't talk about how we use a pen in our classroom. We don't go, I've got this really great lesson revolved around the students using a pen. And true pedagogical transformation is only going to work when the technology is on the same level as a pen and a workbook. Simply giving students a device will probably see your achievement go backwards. You're introducing distractions, temptations, and a tool that no one really knows how to use without any guidance. However, if you do that with the plan, ensuring both staff and students know how to use it to the best efficiency for education, your staff are both willing and passionate to engage the students through that medium. You're on the right track. So here at Xavier, combined with our technology and the Chromebooks being introduced to our Year 7 and 8 students, we had a plan and an initiative was created, and we call it our at Xavier program. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know everything about how this program works because I'm not a part of it specifically myself. But what it involves is 3 classes: our religious education, our English classes, and our history geography classes in Year 7 and 8, all joining together. There are 3 classes together in the one room, and there is a common focus on literacy. Now, the specific advantages here and why I was brought in and a little bit of consultancy on this program was how can tech benefit them? Now, Year 7 and 8 students have this device. How can we take advantage of this? So first off, it just offered a lot of opportunities for classroom pedagogy. We could change what we did in the classroom because every student had a device. When you have 90 students sitting in front of you, you don't want everyone looking at the one focus point up the front all the time because you're not going to catch everyone. But by every student having a Chromebook in their hands, sitting right in front of them, you can then engage with each individual student very quickly and very easily. So it was up to our passionate and willing staff to investigate all the ways that they could offer those opportunities to the students. In addition to just what happened in the classroom, there was an opportunity now, every student having a Chromebook, that we could alter the way that we did our assessment. And the at Xavier program was a revolutionary example of that here at Xavier. So first off, what we did was place a very large emphasis on formative assessment. Every student and teacher knew how every student was going all along the way. Tasks were being completed, recorded, and given feedback on all the time. As a consequence of that, when it came time to our semester reporting, staff didn't have to sit down and write out 500 characters worth of a report comment because students and staff knew where each of them were up to along the way. And because of this technology, parents also had access to all the resources, assessments, and feedback that were offered in our online learning environment as well. Again, creating that ability to free up our teachers' time at the end of each semester to not have to worry about reports. We offered feedback through outcomes and through work habits, but the physically typed comment was no longer needed, because parents were able to log in whenever they wanted to view how their child was progressing in those courses. Some evidence to support this, because it's all great to talk about the advantages that we can do and our perceived benefits that we're getting, but we need results at the end of the day. So our NAP plan data here, as tracked over the past 4 or 5 years, to give a little bit of context to these graphs, what we've got is the green line, the light coloured line is us here at the school, and the 2 darker colour lines are both the state and the Catholic averages in literacy, subjects such as the NAPLAN tests of writing, reading, and grammar and punctuation. So this program and initiative was brought in to address a need, and the need was our literacy results were not that great. 2014 was when the program was introduced. 2015, the students had been exposed to 1 year of at Xavier in year 8. So when they did the test, the NAPLAN test at the start of year 9, we can see in reading some significant growth, and in writing and grammar and punctuation, some positive growth. Then it came time to, from 2015 to 2016, the students we had sitting NAPLAN into last year, at the start of the year, had 2 years worth of the at Xavier program. For 2 years, they had a very strong literacy focus, with supported by technology, and they achieved some outstanding and remarkable growth previous years, particularly grammar and punctuation in 1 year there. Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned, we do our PAT OARS testing, OARS PAT testing, and I wanted to draw a quick comparison here just to see if it was maybe the NAPLAN that was showing us some favourable results. So a quick analysis of our Year 7 cohort in 2014 shows that we had a spread of data over 6 bands of achievement. The majority of our students were floating around the middle there somewhere, and we only had 6% in the top band. Now, the ASA PAT testing is measured over time. So this is a direct measure of growth over the years. However, for those familiar with PAT testing, you pick the tests based on the level of which you would like to test your students. So students in Year 9 are completing a harder test than those students completed in Year 7, which is why we believe that this also shows positive growth for us as well. A quick highlight of the key features of the same students, but last year in Year 9, doing the comprehension test, is we've now limited our achievement to the top 5 bands instead of the 6. The majority of our students are achieving in the higher region, and from 6% we've moved to 14% achieving in the highest band. Now I've put a quick graph together to show the change in that. So the blue bars are the students' achievement in Year 7, and the red bars are the same students' achievement 2 years later in Year 9, doing that harder test. So as you can see, we've roughly moved 30% of our students from the lower region into the upper region there. And we believe that that is a extremely positive growth because, as we all talk about, literacy underpins just about everything that we do. So we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing for our students. Question time. And Chris, I'm going to have to ask you to help me out on this one. How would you like to do this?
No worries, Ben. Thank you so much for that. It always blows my mind when I speak to you. Ben and I have met a couple of times, and what I really love about your approach is that you have taken a very methodological, I think I just made that word up, methodical approach to this, and planned, looked for your outcomes, and then you have some evidence there. And I know that we can't always have causality between Chromebooks or any intervention really, because there are so many different things going on, but there's some really, really convincing evidence there which shows us that the correct implementation of technology in a way which is linked to pedagogy and linked to the progress and growth of kids is actually super powerful. So I do have one very specific question. Let me just go back through it. You mentioned about having external surveys and interviews done, and somebody was just very interested in what you meant by that.
So we sourced consultancy from an external company. I believe, I don't know how I go for product endorsement here, but the company themselves. Sorry?
An external company?
Yeah.
An external company?
Yes. And that particular company offered consultancy to education institutions, schools and universities to come in with the experts that they have and to really work with the school in sorting out how they would like to move forward. So what that involved is this company sent us their representatives. Those representatives interviewed staff and students, as well as a few parents. They sent out surveys to a lot of people. They interviewed a select number of people. They combined all of that feedback, and that is all provided back to you. So you get sent something like a 57-page document of all the results that they got through the interviews and the surveys. And then they also send you a roughly 20 to 30-page document with those objectives, strategies, the why, the how we're going to achieve it, all outlined with some extreme levels of referencing based in research and theories by people much smarter than I.
So you do have a few really nice comments there, actually. I think thanks Scott Winkler, who says, thank you for the data-based evidence. I appreciate your openness. Well done to your staff. So I think it's important you hear that. And Janine Baker says that the evidence of student growth in literacy speaks wonders by using this technology. So don't leave yet, Ben and Rich, because I might if you can give me screen share. In fact, I'll just pin share, I think.
Yeah, it goes all weird if I try and switch to
it. If I just jump onto these slides and show you guys. because we're a great team and we're using Gsuite technology, we've got the team up in Sydney, and Ben in Albury, and I'm down here in Melbourne, trying to find answers for you for some of your brilliant questions. So we've got 2 slides. One of them's a bit messy, but that's okay. We do obviously have some issue around managing a fleet of Chromebooks within the New South Wales Department of Education domain. So we've got essentially, I think that's a New South Wales issue, and we would really like you to contact them and talk them through it, and I'm sure we would be able to help where we could. We had a question about how can you create video on Chromebooks, which I thought was a really great question, because we love doing that as teachers, and we can use extensions like Screencastify for screens and webcams, or we can use apps like WeVideo, which also allows us to capture video. So again, we've got plenty of webinars and tutorials on those specific things, but it is very doable on Chromebooks. And especially if there are some models of Chromebooks which have a nice rotating camera, so you can actually turn the camera around the other way. But essentially there is some fantastic apps, and there are some fantastic apps and extensions that allow you to do video. If you are one of those people who loves using QR codes, and I know I am, and especially because it makes it nice and easy for kids to access different sites, you can actually use the Chromebook webcam. There is something called webqr.com, which is just a site that the kids can bookmark. And if they do have a QR code, they can turn their Chromebook around and they can use WebQR to go to any QR website that you've created for them. We did have a question about monitoring web history, and Dav, who is one of our Chrome ninjas, up in Sydney there, he said that looking at a centralized solution for monitoring student internet history, such as proxy servers like Blue Coat, etc., or an extension solution like GoGuardian, would log those kind of things. And while I was typing that up in New South Wales, in a much more beautiful form, the team there has put up some URL blacklists for you, some support around enrolling Chromebooks as well. So please do click on these links and follow them. I should have said, actually, in the description of the video, there is a link to the slide deck. So please feel free to jump on that. And the DET questions, there is something about, teachers and IT admins working at the coal face, going back to the departments and saying, right, this is what we need. We have these Chromebooks and we really want to use them. So absolutely go back and rattle your sabers a little bit. Can I just pull up some more questions here, and we'll see if Rich or Ben wants to answer any of these. The questions have been flying in as I was just talking through there. So there are actually, some of them have already been answered by other people in the chat, so thank you so much for that. Lots of great compliments for you, Ben. I'm sure you can have a look at the chat about how well you've managed that, the planning and the evaluation, etc. So the NAPLAN, there is a question on NAPLAN, and Dav has the answer for us about it. So NAPLAN, or any online examination technology, can use the Chrome Management Console. The ability to, yes. Is somebody going to jump in on that?
If Rich would like to, he can.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So yes, the NAPLAN application hasn't been released publicly yet, but it will be available for Chromebooks in the future.
And from a local perspective, that kiosk mode and that Chrome management environment there, you can literally specify any web page or collection of web pages that you would like your students to only be able to access during a specific time. So for us, particularly with the PAT testing there, we just grabbed our link for PAT testing and put that in the whitelist and banned everything else. So students couldn't even open a new tab. They just sat there, they completed the test, and when they were done, that's all they could do until we released behind the scenes. So it's got nothing to do with their device. It's us sitting in our IT office with all the students' user group, the group that they're enrolled in, and they don't get to do anything with their device until we release it. So that was probably something to be aware of, is that we sent out a communication to the students who were performing the test to let them know that even if they weren't at school, their device would still be locked down during that time, because it is applied to their account regardless of what network they're connected to. So it is that powerful.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, Ben. I'm just checking to see if there are any more things that we want to tackle. And what I'll do is I'll just take us on to the next just couple of slides that we have left, and then maybe come back and see if we've got any questions right at the end. So let's have a look. See, what we would very, very much encourage you guys to do is, especially if you're using Gsuite in your classroom, and those of you who are IT managers, and we really encourage you to send your teachers to use a Google for Education training center, because there are tons of fantastic online content there for free, which allows you to look not just at the use of Gsuite in a kind of basic way, but really link to pedagogy based on the SAMA model, really trying to help educators use Gsuite and Chromebooks to the best they possibly can. And formerly in the school I worked in, we did this together. We would meet up after school, and we'd have some lollies and some coffee, and we would work through the training center stuff together as a team. And then when we were done, we could actually sit for the Google for Education Certified Educator program. So this is actually a fantastic program where your teachers can actually sit an exam. It's not easy, I'll be really, really honest. The level 1 is very, very, very manageable. Level 2 is pretty challenging, but in a really good way. And it will not only, I think, help you get certification, but also pushes you so that you can be challenged, I think, and move on to the next level. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly ask you, if you don't mind, and this link is within the description for the video, and it's also here on the slide deck. We would love your feedback and feed forward on these webinars. We spend a little bit of time. In fact, no, that's not true. We spend a lot of time. Let me just skip over. I think I've just realized I haven't changed the slides across, so you can just see Ben, which is a pleasure. Everyone wants to see Ben. But yeah, sorry. So very, very quickly, the Google Training Center is on the slides. You can look at that for yourself on the slide deck. And then the Google Certified Educator Program, the g.co/edu certifications. And yes, and finally, we would love some feedback and some feed forward from you. We want you to tell us how you think these have gone, but also, we're really interested in finding out what you would like more of. The next webinar we are running is on the 23rd of March, so in a few weeks, and it's actually at 5 p.m. New Zealand time, which means it's at 7 p.m. Australian time. And so we are looking again at Chromebooks, but from an example in Wellington at St. Patrick's School, which is, I think, the oldest school in Wellington, and how a very kind of traditional school has integrated Chromebooks to really transform their curriculum, especially around STEM as well. So let me just jump out of here. I think most of the questions have been answered. I do apologize for just showing Ben's face for a couple of minutes instead of the screens, but as Ryan says, we enjoy watching Ben's glorious beard, so well done, Ben. Please bring your beard back as often as you can. And listen, we really thank you for giving up your time to spend this with us on an evening. We hope it was useful. Please do fill in the feedback and the feed forward form. Can I just thank Ben, who I know is away from his very young family to be with us tonight, and Rich, who is still at work at 8 p.m. sitting in the Sky office in Google Sydney. So thank you very much, guys. We're looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar in a few weeks. And we will keep an eye on the chat, and you'll have some more emails coming out from us with information about our future webinars. So thank you very much, guys, and good night.